Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Matthew Robinson. I'm one of the hosts here. We've asked Podium to do a webinar to train everybody in how to use online reviews to increase your business. There are people on the line from Australia and New Zealand. I'd like to now introduce Taylor Cutter, who's a director from Podium, who'll be running the webinar. So thank you for attending, and over to you. Thank you, Taylor.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Matthew. So, yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today over here at Podium. We're really excited to give this webinar in partnership with webTRIM. We give a lot of presentations like this to a lot of conferences and a lot of webinars such as this. And the one thing that you'll notice is that today this webinar isn't meant to be something that you just take away and think at a high level, oh, that's nice. Maybe if I had this or that or this marketing person, I could implement that strategy, right? But rather, the things that we're going to go over today are hopefully things that you can actually take away and do immediately, right? These are things that you can help impact your business right off the bat. So, again, going back to that title, we're going to be talking about how you can increase word of mouth for your shop with online reviews. Now, most everyone already knows that online reviews are really good for building trust with your customers, and they really do, right? You want to make sure that when people look you up, if they're doing some research, that they only find good things about you online. The thing that a lot of people don't realize is that online reviews really are the new word of mouth. In fact, most people don't understand that online reviews impact something called local SEO more than anything else that you have control over. And so I'm going to talk about how those things can really move the needle for your business and give you some actionable tips of how to improve that local SEO and also, more than anything, how to collect hundreds of positive reviews from your customers. Now, like Matthew said, a few little quick housekeeping items. The webinar will be recorded, so if you need to step away for a second to help a customer, that's not a big deal. We'll make sure we'll send out this recording to you afterwards. And then that way you can also share with any of your colleagues that you feel like you might need to share this with. Also, we will be doing a Q&A section at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, feel free to type those in at any time. You can do that just by using the GoToWebinar control panel that usually populates on the right-hand side of your screen. You can just type in your question or just press enter or click on the send button and do that at any time during the presentation. It won't matter. We just don't want you to forget your question if it's on a specific slide right before we move on, and then we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. So the agenda for today, so I'm going to talk about why online reviews matter to your business. I'm going to talk about how they increase word of mouth and give you some tips on determining which sites that you should be focusing on to get collecting reviews. And then most of all, right, probably the best thing you'll take away from today is I'll go over those best practices for collecting more new reviews from your customers, right? Real reviews. So let's get straight into it. So reviews influence the entire customer journey. Many of us are aware that online reviews will help your business when people are deciding, but what a lot of people don't know is that online reviews will help you get found in the first place. In fact, a recent survey showed that 61% of buyers use online reviews to learn about new products, such as going into the reviews about a specific company and then learning about new products that they can then purchase. And the second stat is really interesting. 84% of consumers trust online reviews just as much as personal recommendations from family members or friends. Now, on that study, you'll find it's really interesting, and this probably makes sense, but when you drill into that 84%, it holds pretty flat for the older generations, right? That 80% mark in that range. However, when you get into the younger generations with millennials and even those who are younger than that, you'll find that number is much higher, even to the point where we had some respondents saying that they trusted online reviews more than personal recommendations from family members or friends. Now, that sounds absolutely absurd. Why would you ever trust somebody that you've never met before more than a family member or friend? And the reason is that they don't necessarily actually trust that specific person who left that review more than a family member or friend. But think of it this way. If I was talking to my dad and I said, hey, I've had an issue with my car. I'm wondering, where the best place to take it would be, or I got in a car crash and I'm not sure if I want to, actually use the insurance and have my insurance costs go up. Where should I go? And I talked to my dad. He says, oh, use Bill's, panel and paint. He'll take good care of you. I've known him for years, right? Now, Bill might not be the owner of Bill's body and paint shop anymore, right? And that interaction my dad had with Bill could have been 20 years ago. Whereas online reviews, right, are constant. People are constantly leaving reviews about specific businesses, and it's hundreds of different viewpoints from hundreds of different customers every day. So if you think about it that way, it can kind of make sense why some people might trust online reviews as much or sometimes even more than personal recommendations because of that mass influence from a larger number of people. And then this last stat, right, isn't very new to us, right? We are all aware that online reviews have a huge impact on the buying decisions made by consumers, right? When they actually decide to do business with you and your repair shop, right, making sure that you have a good reputation is obviously something that they will look into. Now, let's talk about how online reviews impact word of mouth, and then we're going to talk about something called local SEO. So, first of all, this is a very obvious statement, but customers are your best salespeople, right? Everyone knows that customer referrals convert at a higher level than other lead sources, right? When people actually hear about you from somebody else. But what people don't understand is that online reviews are that new word of mouth because they're trusted as much as personal recommendations from family members and friends, right? And consumers don't want to hear about, maybe a specific customer that you chose, right, and put their testimonial on your website, right? Well, that's a good thing to do, right? They want to hear about actual customer experiences that aren't unfiltered. So that's why they trust these online review sites to get that opinion. The other thing that a lot of business owners aren't aware of is that online review sites are everywhere. It used to be, 15, 20 years ago that you had to go to a specific place to find reviews about different companies, right? And it was a specific review site. That's all they did on that website. However, today it's changed where everywhere you have an online listing, right? So pretty much anywhere that your business has a name, address, phone number, right? A simple listing about your company or information online usually will have online reviews associated with that. And most of those are places that people are searching for your business without even looking for those reviews, such as Google, Facebook, or Yelp, right? So let's look at some of these stats. 58% of consumers look at online reviews at least weekly. 87% of consumers have access to Google, Facebook, or Yelp on their smartphones. And that's talking about the applications on their smartphones. That's not talking about a web browser. When you talk about a web browser, then that number obviously jumps up to 100. And then 36% of consumers frequent industry-specific sites, right? And that would be something like carsales.com here in Australia. The other thing is that reviews are a two-way street, right? People think it's really hard to get reviews from your customers because they don't come in organically very often. But 77% of consumers would be willing to leave you a review if you actually ask them, right? Nobody's going to do anything unless you actually ask them to do that. And also think to yourself, when's the last time you left an online review? It's probably been a while. And the reason why is because it's not super easy. So we need to make sure that we find ways to make it easier to your customers. Now, this is where we're going to start talking about that local SEO, right? This is how you become more visible to online searches just by simply managing your online reviews. So online reviews are a key factor that make up Google's local search ranking. Now, what's Google's local search ranking? Now, you've probably heard of something called SEO, right? SEO is this term that we've all heard. It's been around 20 years or so, right? And it's simply, how you can be visible online, right? Now, the thing that a lot of businesses don't understand is that there's a big difference between local search rankings, right? Local SEO and just organic SEO. So what's that difference? Well, organic SEO is simply talking about, very general search terms. So if I were to look up, about a specific car part or how, to repair a panel on my car, right? And that would probably pull up something like a Wikipedia page or how-to video on YouTube, things like that, right? Whereas local searches are when people are actually looking for a physical place or service. So that would be doing something like a near me search. So panel shops near me, car repair shop near me, right? Repair shops for, whatever, Holden's near me, things like that, right? And that also translates into specific geographic areas such as car repairs, Melbourne, things like that. And the thing that's important about that is that those are the searches that you would want to pull up for because those are the people that have high buying intentions. And I'll talk about a little bit more about that later. The thing that is most notable about this is that near me searches are growing extremely rapidly. In fact, over the last 2 years, the term near me, so searches where somebody plugs in a normal search term but then adds near me into it, has grown by 500% in the last 2 years. That's insane growth. And that means that consumers are looking for businesses like yourself, and you want to make sure you pull up. Now, that can be a daunting task, thinking about how you can improve local SEO, right? Most of us, we don't want to spend too much time with marketing or working on the internet. But the thing is this is a lot easier than it actually sounds. And the simple answer is just to start collecting more online reviews can help with this, right? Now, this is all because of something called micro moments. Now, micro moments is a term that Google coined about 3 or 4 years ago when a customer is in this exact moment, right? And they have their smartphone on hand, right? A supercomputer right in your pocket, and they want to know something, they want to go somewhere, or they want to buy something, right? And so you want to make sure that when a customer is ready to do an action, right? They want to fix their car, that they choose your shop. So let's talk about how you can take advantage of those micro moments. So the first thing you want to do is you want to identify what are those searches that are being done in your industry, right? So if you're a panel shop, what would be the top search term that somebody would be searching for to find a panel shop? It'd probably be panel shop or paint repair or painting shops in blank area or near me. The next thing you want to know is what are the frequent questions that they ask, and make sure that you have that on your Google listing. And then you want to conduct some research on, how most of your customers are finding your business. Now, the reason why is that 50% of mobile searches will result in an in-store visit within 24 hours. And in fact, that's actually an old stat. That number has actually jumped up to 76%, in fact, of mobile searches will result in an in-store visit within 24 hours. And in fact, 28% of those searches will actually result in a purchase being made. Now, the other thing about online reviews is they obviously build consumer confidence in your business. 3.3 stars is the minimum star rating on average consumers would consider engaging with a business. Now, we found that if you're below a 3.3 star rating, most customers won't even consider you as an option, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to see you and then maybe you change their rating. That means they won't even consider. So we tell most of our customers to make sure they're at a minimum above a 4.0 star rating. Online reviews obviously also influence purchase decisions. 82% of consumers say the content or review has convinced them to make a purchase, and 93% of consumers say online reviews has had an impact on their purchase decisions. Now, we've talked a lot about online reviews, right, and how they impact a lot of different aspects of your business. They impact the trustworthiness of your business. Let's say you're just really good at doing marketing and you've bought billboard ads or something like that. People remember the name of your business, right? They're probably not going to remember your phone number or the address if that's on the billboard, but they'll probably, at least remember your name. And what are they going to do with that information? They're going to Google it. Now, what would happen if they Googled your business, but then they saw you had terrible online reviews? Now, all those marketing dollars go straight down the toilet, right? So you want to make sure that when people find you, because you've done a good job with, word of mouth with your customers or with marketing, that your online reputation is truly representative of the service you're actually providing. Now, we've also talked about how online reviews impact your local search rankings, right? That by simply collecting more reviews, you're more likely to pull up if somebody's doing one of those near me searches. Now, those things are all great, but which online review sites are best for your business, right? Where should you actually be collecting those online reviews? Now, to answer that question, you need to ask another question. Well, what are your goals? Are you simply trying to get found more online by improving your local SEO and visibility? Or are you simply trying to build trust and credibility with your customers? So in those cases, right, to answer those questions, if you're trying to simply get found more online, if you're trying to increase your web presence, you really want to be focusing on Google, right? Google is by far king, and then we'd say Facebook is queen, right? And the reason why is because Google will have the largest or the most impact on being found online, right? Having a lot of reviews on your Google listing. After that is Facebook, having a Facebook page and making sure people are recommending your business on your Facebook page. But then there's also hundreds of different review sites out there, right? And so you need to do a little bit of research on your business. Simply go on and literally Google your business and see what comes up. You'll find sometimes there's geographic specific websites. Sometimes you'll find that there are very industry specific websites. In the US, that would be, like Edmunds and Dealer Rater. Here, you have product review is really prominent. So just making sure that places that you might pull up for online, that you at least have a good presence on those sites. So To give you the most clear answer, you want to focus first on Google and then on Facebook. And then after that, just make sure you at least have a good star rating on the other sites. The most important thing you want to realize, though, is that whatever sites you're driving reviews to, you want to make sure that your customers are familiar with those websites. You could collect literally thousands of reviews, but if it's a website that nobody's ever heard of or they don't find, it's not going to help your business at all, right? So if you ever talk with a company, let's say after this you decide to go talk to a marketing firm or somebody that you've already hired, and they say, oh yeah, we know this service, it's great. They'll do something where we can collect thousands of reviews from your customers to a microsite. If you ever hear them use the term microsite, you want to run as fast away. You want to run away as fast as you can from that. And the reason why is that they're completely pointless. They don't help your company. Now, if they say they can aggregate those reviews, where they can take the reviews and then post them to Google from that microsite, that's even worse because that's against Google's terms of service, and that can get you blacklisted. So you want to stay away from those types of things. So this is really simple, right? Make sure you stick with Google and Facebook, and then after that, do a little bit of research on your business. So let's go over some tips of how we can help you build your online presence, right, on those sites that matter most to your customers, so that you can pull up more. So the first thing is you need to start inviting your customers to leave your review. Nobody's going to do something unless they're asked to do that thing, right? People don't do things on their own or just simply out of the goodness of their heart. Usually, if you're not collecting reviews right now from your customers and they're just coming organically, what you'll see is a very polarizing effect where only the absolute happiest of customers, where you blew them out of the water and had such a great time that they can't shut up about how awesome you are the ones who are going to leave your review. Or more often than not are those angry customers who have an axe to grind and they simply want to let out some steam, right, about how angry they are about the experience they had with your business. Now, a lot of the time that's not your fault. It might have been something with their insurance company. It might have been something with, their specific make and model or the OEM, things that were out of your control, but they still will leave you a bad review. So what you really need to do is try to get a proper representation of your business by asking all those customers who normally, they just had a fine, good day, that you did everything they expected, and they're just the people that aren't going out of their way to leave you an online review. So you need to make sure you're sending them these review invitations. Now, when you're doing that, you need to determine what the right timing is of that invitation. So what we found, and again, this will vary if you're a paint and panel shop, this will vary if you're a repair shop or a transmission shop, everyone's different. But what we've found is that usually the right timing is to send them a review invitation before they actually leave your business, but after the transaction has been made. So let's say you're a repair shop, that would be usually after their car has been fixed, right? They're happy, they're about out the door, they've paid everything like that, but you don't want them to actually leave your business, because once they leave your business, their mind has gone on to the next thing, right? We have very short attention spans these days. In fact, most people have an attention span of 5 seconds compared to a couple minutes just a couple decades ago. So making sure that you can capture them and send them that review invitation before they actually leave your business will drastically improve your likelihood of them leaving you an online review. The second step we have for helping you collect reviews is you want to make sure you can eliminate barriers, right? You want to make a process that it's so easy for not just your customers, right, but yourself and your employees to send a review invitation that they'll actually do it. Now, I like to think about this the same way I like to think about the gym. It's a hard thing to do, right? Going to the gym is not easy. And so let's say I wanted to start losing weight and go to the gym. I decided, hey, every morning before work, I'm going to start working out. But the problem is there's a lot of barriers that keep you from doing that, right? You have to wake up earlier, get out of your nice warm bed. You have to go find your clothes and put them on, and then you have to find your car keys and then drive, to the gym. Those are all things that are keeping you from going to the gym. So things that I found that have helped are, removing those barriers. So the night before, I'll lay out my clothes, I'll find my keys, I'll put them out on the table. I'll put my phone on the other side of the room so that when my alarm goes off, I have to get out of bed whether I want to or not, just to shut off that alarm. And then, hey, let's decide I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm just going to start running, and I'm not going to have to even drive anywhere. I'm just going to go outside and go on a couple mile run that morning, right? those are things that I can do to remove those barriers for myself for working out. So think about that for your business and for the review process, right? Some of the barriers would be your customers would have to log into their Google account to leave you a Google review, right? People might not remember their password or might not even know where to find your business online, right? So you need to figure out a process where it's so easy for both you and your customers that they'll actually do it. That actually is something that Podium provides, but we can talk a little bit more about that later, or if you have a question about that. Step 3, you need to set the expectation for the review invitation, right? You can't simply ask your customers to leave your review, right, and send them an invitation without letting them know you're going to do it or giving them some context, right? So, for example, let's say I had a customer, leave my business. I sent them an email that had a link of where to leave that review, but I didn't tell them I was going to do that. Let's say they actually see that email. I mean, they probably won't because people have hundreds of emails in their inbox. But let's say I get that email and I see that you invited me to leave you a review, but I don't know what to do with it because you never told me about that. So with your customers, if you're going to send them a review invitation, you need to make sure you give them a little bit of a heads up, right? So simply going through the when, the how, and the why, right? So saying something like, hey, we're glad you came in today and we hope you had a good experience. We'd like to get some feedback from you on how your experience was today. So shortly here, I'm going to send you a review invitation via text, an email, whatever, right? If you wouldn't mind clicking on that link and leaving us a review, I really appreciate it. It really helps us to run our business better and to get more customers, right? Simply going through those things and giving your customers a simple empathy will really help you increase your likelihood of them actually leaving you an online review. Now, step 4, invite via text message. Now, this is probably the most important step I'm going to give you. And the reason why is that text messages have an open rate of 99%, 90% of which are opened within the first 3 minutes of receipt. Now, that's insane. If you think about email, right? If you know anything about email open rates, that's around 20%, right? Usually if you have a good email open rate. And then the click-through rate of that is even extremely lower. So think about yourself, right? How many unread emails do you have? I constantly have at least 50 or so unread emails, and I'm constantly trying my very best to get through all of those, right? My boss, right, one of the executives I work for here at Podium, he has 50,000 unread emails. Do you think if you send him an email, he's going to see it? Probably not, right? And it's the same case with a lot of your customers. So by sending that review invitation through a text message, you are much more likely that your customers will see it and that they'll actually take an action on it. All right, step 5, and this is our last step here, and we'll start opening it up to Q&A. But these are all things that you can do on your own, right? A lot of these tips I gave you today, and they're great tips, right? But at the end of the day, using an online review management tool such as Podium or a software will make it a lot easier, right? Because handling your reviews is just another thing to do. Again, they are things you can do on your own, but it is another thing for you to do. So getting a review management tool, right, a software that can help take some of that out of your hands and make it easy for you and your employees is going to be a huge investment. In fact, we found that tons of the customers and people that we work for are spending thousands of dollars every single month with a marketing agency only to have minimal results. Whereas if you were to simply use a software such as Podium, right, where you can collect hundreds of reviews from your customers every single month, you'd see so much more ROI than you would from any marketing company. In fact, most of our customers see a 6% increase in their revenue over the first year of our service simply because of that local SEO benefit, right, where they're found more online. Now, I don't want to pitch Podium too much, so here are a few of our sources just to check up and make sure I'm not making any of these stats up, but I'm going to open up to Q&A, and I think, Matthew, we've seen some questions come in. And hopefully we haven't lost you, Matthew. Again, so let me actually go through this again.
Yeah, I lost my mute button. Yeah, we have a couple of questions.
That happens sometimes. Yeah, so I'll just explain again.
We have a couple of questions. Yep.
Oh yeah, so just if anyone has a question here and they haven't had the chance to type it in, again, you can just do that by typing that in under that questions tab in the go-to control panel. It's usually on the right side of your screen. So we'll be taking questions. I know we have a few come in, and Matthew will ask those right now. But if you haven't been able to ask those, go ahead and type those in right now.
Sure. The couple of questions we have. The first one is, what do you do with a negative review? We're always going to get them. What's the best way to handle them?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one we get super frequently, right? So yeah, I've talked about how you can collect good reviews from your customers, but what do you do when you actually get a bad review from your customer, right? I mean, your business is your baby, and sometimes that can really hurt, right? So I have a couple of tips to give you, but before I go into those, I'm going to tell you the number one solution, right? The best way to handle negative reviews is to completely drown them out by getting hundreds of positive reviews from your customers, right? So let's think about it this way. If you have 18, let's say you have 18 reviews on Google right now, right? And somebody leaves you a 1-star review, that could pull down your star rating quite a bit, right? When you only have a certain amount of reviews, right? And it also will be a review that is pretty prominent and other people will probably see because they probably left a big old nasty message, right? And all these terrible things about your business. So that can really hurt. But if you're able to collect hundreds of positive reviews from your normal customer base, right, that person's voice is so much smaller, right, and it's going to affect your business so much less. So that's the best answer I can give you. Now, what to do with that specific review? There's a couple of steps you want to go through. So first thing is you need to take a breath and realize it's not the end of the world, right? In fact, it can look fishy if a business only has 5-star reviews and not a single bad review. So it just makes you look more authentic and human, right? By having a couple bad reviews. It's not a bad thing to have bad reviews. However, what you need to do is you need to handle that situation. So after you've taken a breath or two and realize it's not the end of the world, you need to respond to that review. Now, when you're responding, you need to make sure that you're not emotional, right? You need to take emotion out of the equation and make sure whoever's responding wasn't personally involved, because the absolute worst thing you could do is get in a fight with somebody online, right? And go back and forth about, this or that happened. So simply respond to that person that left the negative review on, whichever platform they left that review, and say something like, hey, we're sorry you had a bad experience. We want to make this right. Here's this phone number. Reach out to me personally and we can take care of this, right? And give them that option of reaching out to you online. That way that anyone that comes online and will see that negative review, they'll also see your response of you trying to help that customer and know, hey, if I have a bad experience, this business is going to try to take care of me, right? And then try to handle that situation offline where nobody else can see it. Now, best case scenario, let's say you are able to help that customer. Sometimes it's something really silly and you just had no idea that was a problem. It was something you could totally fix. People can go back online and you should ask them to do so and change their review. And I've actually done that several times with businesses that I've worked with, right? Where I've left them a negative review, they've reached out to me, and then I've gone back and changed that review, because reviews, as long as you can log back into your account, you can change the review you left. Now, most of the time that's not going to be the case. Most of the time you're not going to be able to fix that person's problem, because a lot of the time it's not, even in your hands, it's not a problem that you could really fix. So in that case, at least you tried, but the most important thing is that now people see that you tried, right? And then they can see that you gave that person an option to reach out to you, and you made yourself look really good, right? Now, again, those are all just fixes for that specific review, but the absolute best thing you can do to handle negative reviews is to simply generate hundreds of reviews online that are positive from your normal customer base. That was a great question, though.
Good answer. Next question is also from the chat line. We're sending out text. You recommend sending out text. How do I make sure I don't violate my customer privacy by texting them? We've seen the European data laws and all that data privacy stuff. How do we make sure we don't get on the wrong side of that law?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as far as the law is concerned, right, it's actually a huge win for us, as businesses and customers, right? Because the one thing we don't want to see is we don't want to see text messaging turn into email, right? Where you're just used to getting, hundreds or sometimes even thousands of emails from different people that's spam, right? And it's not a clean channel. So the nice thing about text messages, right, is the reason they have such a high open rate, right, and that people will see your message is because it's a clean channel, right, where it hasn't been bogged down by marketing. So that's a great question. So the good thing is that online reviews or review invitations, as far as the law is concerned, is transactional data, which means it's one of the few things that you can do with your customers through texting. So that means, you're good as far as the law is concerned by sending them out a text message invitation to review your business, right, via text. The thing you want to do, though, is, again, remember, you want to set that expectation if you're going to send people reviews. So simply let them know, right, hey, I'm going to send you a text asking you to leave this review. If you wouldn't mind doing that, we'd really appreciate it. So now they know, they're expecting it, right? And they're not thinking that you opted them in to some marketing list. The other thing you want to do is that you can text your customers as much as you want, right? Especially if it's only, one-to-one communication where you're talking about their specific, car, right, or service, or giving them updates, saying, hey, your car's due for service, or hey, your car's ready for pickup, it's finished, things like that. The thing you want to absolutely avoid is don't ever text your customers with marketing material, right? Don't say, hey, we're doing a deal this month on such and such, come in for this % off. And you should never use text messaging for that kind of thing. And if you do, you need to absolutely make sure that you have them opted into a marketing specific list, because if you don't, you could get in trouble with the law. But as far as review invitations are concerned and the things I've talked about, you're 100% fine, and your customers can be fine, especially, and if you're worried about any privacy, just giving them a heads up, right, is going to go a long way.
Thanks, Taylor. Last question I had that's from the chat line. What platform should I use? You talked about Facebook and Google. Are they the only ones that we should be using?
Yeah. So that question, I think you're referring to which review sites, right? Should you push your reviews to? Where should you be collecting reviews? And that's exactly right. You want to make sure that you are getting reviews on Google first and foremost by far, because when you get a review on Google, it makes it so that you're extremely more likely to pull up on those local search rankings, right? It also makes it so that if somebody looks for you online, that you have good reviews, right? Because people are most likely going to Google you. In fact, 94% of Australians use Google to find businesses and services compared to other ways, right? So you want to make sure that Google is taken care of first, and you want to be constantly collecting reviews, because the more recent reviews have much more weight in Google's algorithm to pulling you up as a business. Now, after Google, you want to make sure you're doing good on Facebook. In fact, the auto market, right, for dealerships, Facebook Marketplace is actually one of the biggest places that people buy cars these days, especially in developed countries such as Australia, the UK, and the United States. So those are the first two. Now, after that, you just need to do some research about your business, because there are geographic specific websites. In fact, the area I'm from, Utah in the United States, we have a website called KSL, and that's where a lot of people do their buying and selling of products and services. And so, that's a place that only people from Utah would know about. So again, do some research on your business. And I would say, get tons of reviews, like all the time on Google, make sure you have a good rating on Facebook. And then after that, just make sure you have a good star rating on those other sites. You don't need to really worry so much about getting a high number of reviews. You just need to make sure you have a good star rating on those smaller sites, such as like Product Review and places like that. Okay, so I think that's all the questions we had come in, Matthew. So I'm going to wrap it up here.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Goodbye.